On today's episode of Burst Mode, we're going to be covering the brand new updates for Lightroom and Photoshop and helping Joseph decide between APS-C and full frame. All that and more right here on Burst Mode. All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to Burst Mode episode 7. Good morning, Joseph. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So today, let's talk about the big Lightroom update. I don't know a lot about it because I guess it happened. What did it happen yesterday?
It did. It was yesterday. It's a relatively big update, not really like a massive update. But
okay,
they
so it
changed
happened on
the loading picture, so that's at least
that's big for Adobe, though. I mean, the loading
Adobe.
picture, yeah, and they made it probably like 1% faster, so that's probably good. So then it happened on October 15th, 2018. That's when it was, okay. So you were telling me that, so if we skip Lightroom for a second, let's go straight to Photoshop, because that's what interests me.
Yeah.
So we get basically a full version of Photoshop on iOS. Is that correct?
On iPad.
Oh, so just for iPad?
On iPad,
okay.
because you can imagine it'd be a little bit difficult to do on the iPhone.
Yeah, I can imagine layers and stuff.
Because before it had been like 4 different apps, like Photoshop Mix, Photoshop Express, Photoshop, like there's like 4, it was
horrible.
Kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Lightroom was a full Lightroom on everything, so we're like, well, surely, I mean, Photoshop's probably more complex by far, but everybody wanted it on the iPad, and there were rumors that it was coming, and then I guess yesterday I don't know if they had an event or what, but they just had a big old, because they introduced Photoshop for both, so you can have the same PSD you're working on your computer, and then to your iPad, and then they introduced a new app called Rush.
Interesting.
That is like a video editing app for iOS, and I think maybe for Mac as well. Okay. But it seems like it's maybe like an iMovie type of thing. Okay. So you can do some color, you can do some editing, things like that. But really big thing is Photoshop now is Photoshop CC. So if you open up Photoshop, it now opens up a new icon next to your old one. So if you click that old one, it's now opening up the new or the same one.
Okay. I wonder do you know yet if it offers like pressure sensitivity support for the Apple Pencil?
Oh, I have no idea.
Because that would be killer if it does that.
It would.
Because I use the Wacom pen on my computer, so it'd be awesome if I could just go right to my iPad and have the same kind of thing.
It'd be nice. I mean, it's an easy thing to implement, from what I understand.
For sure.
And they also have another app for the iPad specifically that's like a drawing app.
Okay.
And so it's supposed to have different brushes and things that emulate real life brushes and pens.
Right.
Which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is what I'm curious about, too. And I'm curious about all the features, and it's really cool that you can go PSD to PSD from iPad to computer. But Adobe's never been great at performance and handling.
Not really.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you don't have the iPad Pro and you just have another iPad, is it going to be insanely slow? Because the iPad Pro is insanely fast. I have no doubt that it'll handle it, but will it on an iPad, I don't know, iPad 4 or something, or iPad Air, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it depends probably on how in-depth your PSD is.
Yeah. Now, so the other updates are Lightroom CCs, got the bigger ones than Lightroom Classic, right?
Yes. Yeah, Lightroom CC added XT3 support, finally.
It's about time.
Because I'd been trying to convert all of my RAF files into DNG just so they could run in Lightroom so I could play around with some of the old presets that I have, and I couldn't do any of them. It just, nothing was converting it to DNG.
That's insane.
Like, it was not. And then finally, the only thing Adobe had was their RAW converter app that I had to download for free. It's like version 11, I think. They just added XT3 support. And so then I just had to go in there, download that, convert it all, and then throw it into Lightroom. And
sounds like a pretty spotless workflow. That's
oh yeah,
you can thank Adobe for that.
Just about 45 minutes, and you're ready to edit.
Gosh. So do you use Lightroom CC more, or do you use Classic more?
Oh, I use CC more.
Okay. Yeah, because I
actually like the UI better.
Okay. I gotta try it again soon, because I'm still stuck on Classic. I'm I guess a dinosaur now with Adobe stuff. But I mean, a lot of people are still kind of refused to move because it's a familiar interface. But the CC interface looks a lot better. It's just different.
Yeah, I like it much better. Yeah, and they're slowly adding everything that I could find. Everything that I use that I had used in Classic is now in CC. And so
that's good.
Yeah, one of the things they added that they didn't have, and I don't know why, was when you would use a brush or a gradient mask or a radial gradient, is that you couldn't add a color So sometimes I like to brush in maybe a little bit of a color into a certain spot of the photo, and you couldn't do that.
Interesting.
And that finally added that in. And so,
Seems like a good way to go.
literally like the easiest thing in the world to
know.
do, probably just say color. And now I'm hoping they add luminosity masks to all their gradients, because I just learned about that from Sam Hurd, and then you were talking about that too. And so I was like, oh, that seems like a really easy, nice thing to do for a blown out sky or something like that.
Yeah, the range masking slider is even Pictorial had that when they launched like their first version. Yes, it's got to be easy. And obviously Photoshop could do pretty much anything, so you'd think they could easily take some stuff from there. Okay, well, I need to I'll look at Lightroom CC between now and the next podcast, and we'll talk about it next time too, because I want to look at it again. I haven't even opened it since when it first came out. I opened it up and I was like, I hate this. Command Q, and I'm going back to classic.
It's a lot better now. They've added the color profiles. I think they added that a couple months ago. So for a while, you couldn't change your color profile.
Okay.
And so, how it's always on Adobe Standard, and now if you have other ones built in, you can do, Adobe Vivid, Adobe Monochrome, or I have a couple of presets from Develop where they have their own custom color profiles.
Okay.
And now I can actually use that.
Now, this is the big thing for me, not to put you on the spot if you don't know this, but does Lightroom CC have soft proofing, like a printing module or anything for soft proofing a photo to see what it's going to look like for print?
No earthly idea.
Okay.
I've never had to do that.
Because if it doesn't have that, there's no way I can do it. Because I print a lot of stuff, and if I can't proof it before it goes off to print, like upload the ICC profiles from print labs and stuff, that's a huge thing that Lightroom has. That
if I had to guess, I'd say no.
It's probably a good guess.
I mean, I just print mine off straight to the printer in black and white.
Yeah, absolutely. You send it from the Wi-Fi function from the camera, or you just peek.
That's right. And it's just on that standard little 8.5 by 11 sheet, and I just hand that to the clients.
That's the best way to do it. There's going off topic as we always do. There was a guy that I shot a wedding. Well, so this last weekend I shot a wedding with. Yeah. So the guy used a Canon 5D Mark IV, nice. And he had a Fuji, one of the XT100s, and he used that for, and it was just like I don't know if it's a backup camera or just like something for novelty. But what he did was he pulled it out during the reception, so that it wasn't such pressure time like during the ceremony. And he got some photos of the couple, just like of the kissing photo and a cake photo, stuff that he had already taken with his Canon. And he had a little like on location Fuji printer that printed out like small.
Oh,
yeah. And he printed them out right there. And before we left, he handed them to the bride and the groom. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was cool. He was able to do that before he left. But
Fuji's got some pretty good printers.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So he actually did do the whole little on location. Just throw it off to the printer thing. It's pretty cool. Okay, well, could be exciting stuff about Lightroom. I'm gonna have to check out the CC version again. So let's move on to the actual important stuff, Joseph. The XT3 versus the Nikon Z6 for you. I know with photographers in general. There's always a point where we just can't decide. We can't decide on anything. No. Like there's some times where we just come to this crossroad. Like, what camera do we need? What lens? So you've owned the XT3 for how long now?
Since September 21st, 22nd, something like that.
Okay,
so not even a month.
Not even a month, and
almost
right. And you love it, but you're missing.
Love it.
You're missing full frame.
I'm missing full frame.
Right.
Really
so
bad.
Bring us into your head. Expand on that. Why are you considering the Z6?
My initial thought was when I was going to switch from the D800 was because I wanted a mirrorless camera. Because I miss my live view. I miss my electronic viewfinder. And sometimes when I'm in groups, I like to do a lot of candid shots at events and things like that with family and friends. And having a massive big D800, it's like they're like, "Oh, a photographer's here."
That's right. It's very
and then you try and take a little photo, and they're not really paying attention. And everyone's like, "Oh, you're taking photos?" I'll smile, and I'm like, "No, just do whatever you normally do."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Yeah, this isn't gonna work. I love it, but it's just not really gonna work, especially when you're working with people and you need to be a little bit faster." My my A6000 was faster at focusing, is faster at tracking. Everything on that was a little bit better, but I did love the pictures that came out of the D800. And so I was like, man, if I could just have the marriage between mirrorless and full frame.
Yeah.
And so then Nikon announced their Z6 and 7, but the Z6 wasn't coming out till November 30th.
Yeah.
If the Z6 came out with the Z7, I'd probably be holding a Z6 right now.
Probably.
Probably. And so I didn't quite have the money for it, but I probably could have saved up not too long and gotten it, because it wasn't much more expensive than my XT3, strangely enough. And so I got the XT3, and it's an amazing camera. It sort of came out of the gate. Fuji was blowing it away, and I was like, oh, man, how can you refuse this camera?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's so good. It's got everything I really want. And then I did a photo shoot this past weekend with a family, and I love it. Good photos. But I just missed that silky smooth, creamy, dreamy background that I got. And I shot this in the same place that I shoot a lot of my shoots at, and it's like Photographer Central, where it's like lines of photographers in different parts of this park. And there's this past weekend I was there was 2 weddings, 2 proms, and like 3 engagement shoots or something like that. I mean, it's crazy.
That's insane.
But I always go to the place that they don't go. So they always go to like the old 1930s farmhouse in the barn, and then I go to the big field that the sun sort of shines down into, which I think creates more epic photos. And normally with the maternity shoot I did there, I had my D800 with my 50 1.8, and it just looked amazing.
Yeah.
Like, even it was a 50 1.8D Nikon lens, which is you can buy for like $50.
Yep.
And it's not sharp really at all, but it has a real unique kind of look to it.
Yeah.
And so I was shooting with the 16 1.4 on my Fuji, the one I rented, and great lens, and my 50 f2, and photos look good.
Yeah.
It's great because, you know, composing and stuff like that. But man, I just missed the full frame.
So I'm thinking this, and a lot of viewers are probably thinking this too, and people listening in.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is it just the bokeh that you miss, or do you notice a difference in low light performance? Do you miss the 36 megapixels of your D800? Is there anything else you specifically miss?
I do miss the 36 megapixels.
Okay.
That was pretty nice. I could crop the heck in on anything. Low light is not that bad on a Fuji. And here's the thing with a Fuji. It's the pro and con. The pro is that they use their own proprietary stuff, the X-Trans sensor, which is awesome because it allows them to get like really good noise and low light. The bad thing is nobody knows how to freaking handle these crazy proprietary Fuji files.
Yeah.
Like Capture One's probably the best.
Yep.
But there even sometimes with it, I zoom in, I'm like, man, this just doesn't look that great.
Yeah.
And then Lightroom doesn't know what the heck is going on with Fuji Files.
No.
And so I need to re-import some Fuji Files now into the new Lightroom now that they've updated. Fuji to see how it
there's a specific like Fuji RAW converter that I tried that all of my YouTube viewers are telling me to use. I forget what it's called. It's like Fuji X something.
Yeah, I think I have that.
Yeah,
I haven't tried it yet though.
The Fuji Rumors website promotes it a lot, and it's good, but it was never, in my opinion, it wasn't that much better than Capture One. But still, it seemed like every time I would look at a Fuji file, and I would do it mostly on Capture One, it'd be very inconsistent. Like one of them would be perfect, and then in some kind of weird different lighting situation, I would see a lot of random noise in the shadows, and there'd be some weird color shit. It'd just be weird. So yeah, I agree. I think Fujifilm needs to actually share their whatever it is that's in their proprietary file, share all of that information with the RAW processor so they can actually have access and read it and figure out what's going on. Because I can drop a D850 file in Lightroom and be perfectly happy with it. But a Fujifilm RAF file with the XT2 or whatever, XT1, because I own both of them were they looked funky. They had that worming effect.
Yeah.
It was just bad.
Yeah, they do have Lightroom really has the worming effect, and I was showing you that the other night when I was editing too. I would zoom in and I just saw like crazy worm. Now it's when you zoom in a lot, which most people won't.
Right.
I mean, the type of clients I'm working with, they're not going to be blowing these up into big files or anything like that or big pictures. So that's not a big deal. But it'd be one thing if Fuji had their own software and they're like, hey, edit using our software. And I'd be like, yeah, sure, absolutely. You know these files the best, so I'll edit yours. But they don't. And so it's like we have to depend on third-party companies to get it, and it's usually going to take several months before they really start to understand that.
Yeah.
And a lot of them may not even really care that much to try and understand it very well. So that's the downside of Fuji, is that you just never really know if you're getting the full use of your RAW files.
That's right.
From
Now have you've tried the new Capture One specific for Fuji, the Express?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, so that one,
it's the best there is, and I like Capture One. but I have so many presets that I've made and from other people in Lightroom that even when I try and convert those over to Capture One just by matching setting for setting, it's not even close to the same.
Yeah.
And so it's like Capture One's tone curve, when I go into like the dark, so you got the black, the dark, the mid, and then the grays. When I go down and I pull that down to create a little bit of an S curve, if I move it down like 1/4 of a millimeter, it like brings down the contrast, like, or enhances the contrast so much, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so it's just so different.
Yeah, it's tough to get. In Capture One, I've always noticed that it's tough to get a good contrast because the actual contrast slider in Capture One, I feel like all it does is just blow out the highlights. Like it crushes the shadows, just blows out the highlights. It doesn't actually do much to the midtones. It just crushes the shadows, and all the highlights just shift to the right of the histogram immediately.
Yeah, I've been noticing a lot of photographers I've been following lately. I've been saying avoid the contrast slider.
Yes, definitely.
On anything.
Yeah, the dehaze. I almost use dehaze more than I use contrast now. If I'm in Lightroom,
dehaze is cool.
Yeah, dehaze will add the nice little micro contrast. It'll bring down the highlights. It does a lot of magic in that one slider.
Yeah, so with my Fuji, and the big thing also is that if I want that depth of field, then I have to spend a lot more money on a Fuji to get it.
Yes.
And so that's the weird thing. At first, you think you're saving money when you go to crop sensor. And in some ways you are, because the body is cheaper. But if you want really, really crazy depth of field, it's not cheaper.
Yeah.
You might end up being the exact same, if not a little bit more expensive, because if I want that, like, let's see, 1.8 even depth of field from a full frame, I have to spend like $1,000 on crop sensor just to get that.
Yeah.
And whereas on a full frame, I can just grab a 1.8 G lens for $150 used, and it looks the same.
That's right.
So it's like...
Yeah, any kind of nifty-50 on a full frame, 1.8, even 2.8 on a full frame. If it's a semi-telephoto prime, I mean, it's, I mean, you saw just the photos with my 24-70 Nikkor at 2.8. Pretty much anything after 50, like 50, 60, 70, all that just looks killer.
And
with
so
the creamy
that's...
bokeh.
it's...
Yeah, based on my year and a half of shooting with the X-T2, the big bokeh monsters when it comes to the glass is the 16 1.4 if you're close enough with the right angle. It's got a really good bokeh. But then like the new 80 millimeter macro, the 50 to 140, which is like your 70 to 200, the 90 millimeter f2, and then the 50 f2, and there was one more, the 56 1.2.
56 1.2.
Yeah, those are kind of like your creamy bokeh monsters. But yeah, those are all pricey.
Yeah,
so much pricier than a $50 or $80 51.8 from Nikon.
So, and a lot of this is me just getting into my head a little bit too much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, psychology says that when you place a marker for happiness and you say like, oh, well, I'll be happy when this, you know, like when I get this lens, when I get this camera.
Yeah.
That usually what happens is once you achieve that, then your brain changes the marker.
That's right.
For happiness. Yeah. And so it's like, that's maybe what's going on here. But it's also when I've tasted the promised land of full frame, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'd leave it, and then I'm like, I want to come back.
That's right.
And so the thing that's crazy is I was thinking one of my favorite lenses on the Nikon was a 24 to 120 f4. Mm-hmm. And, you know, f4 is not crazy bokeh, but the thing is that's about 2.6, like almost 2.8 on crop sensor.
Right.
So like one of Fuji's, you know, big zooms is the 16 to 55 2.8 for like $1,200.
Right.
And if I go full frame, I can spend half that, $500-$600, and get 24 to 120 at almost the same aperture.
Yeah. Yeah. When you start doing the math on the lenses, I mean, it's definitely it could even out for sure, especially if you care a lot about getting the full frame equivalent bokeh. Because a lot of people that shoot APC or APS-C don't care about that so much. Like with me, I bought it to shoot landscapes mainly, so I didn't really care.
So.
But yeah, with you, I mean, with anyone that shoots people, that full frame bokeh is going to make all the difference in the world.
Yeah,
but that's not to say, I mean, you can be perfectly happy going out the rest of your photography career shooting people and weddings and whatever with the X-T3. But yeah, there's always going to be that little want for that extra bokeh, which will be nice, obviously. So, okay, so what do you right now? Like if I asked you right now, if the Z6 became available like in the next 5 minutes, would you return your X-T3 and all your stuff and get the Z6? What do you think you'd
probably.
do? Yeah, okay.
Because it's just so like. I just want so there's two things. I want the option of having that depth of field.
Yeah.
Like I want to know that it's there. And if Fuji had the 33 f1 that they had, that they're coming out with, that'll be out like in 2020.
Yeah.
Then that would be something I would probably save up to get, because that's like that 50 millimeter range. That's like perfect for almost everything. But there's that, and then the fact that if you get the Nikon with the adapter, you have like 360 lenses at your disposal.
That's right.
You have years and years of third-party lenses, Nikon lenses, G lenses, D lenses. I mean, like all sorts of lenses that you can get. I mean, you can buy cheap 24 to 72.8 on full frame for like $700-800 brand new from Tamron.
Yeah.
So it's like, Sigma makes awesome third-party lenses, and so it's like, man, there's just so many options.
Yeah.
When you go there, and now that the Z6 is mirrorless, 24 megapixels, awesome video. It checks everything I want.
Yeah, it's definitely the one to go for, I think, between that and the Z7. Because the Z6 has the value, and because for only what is still $19.99, right? Is that what it was? Yeah. I think that's to get their mirrorless full frame. That's the best way to go. The Z7. Not saying it's a bad camera, but it's going to be a slow clunker, I think, compared to the Z6, which is going to be more like the Sony A7 III. So yeah, I'm curious to see when the actual real world reviews, not the paid reviews, start coming out, and seeing what people think about it. Because this is what I was telling you last night. I would probably tell you just go with the Z6 too, because Nikon full frame is always what I would choose over anything. But the XT3, when I played with it, whatever we hung out and I got to play with yours, the autofocus even at night was so fast that I don't know. I just don't know if the Z6 is going to be that fast or not. I don't know if it's, because we haven't seen any real world reviews, and I don't know what the low light performance is going to be like. But I can imagine, with full frame, it's going to be at least as good or better than the XT3, I would think.
Yeah, it'll probably be. If it's anywhere close to the A7 III or the D750, then that'll be killer.
So what do you think you're going to do now then, since the Z6 is coming out, and then it'll probably be back ordered for the next 5 years? Are you just going to just keep the XT3?
That's one of the good things, is that it's sort of built in that I can't get it now. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, there's not even really the option right now. I could return my XT3, sell one of my lenses, and have enough probably to pre-order it, but then I don't even know when that's going to be coming out. So, and I've got to do some shoots. I've got to shoot this weekend too, another family shoot, and then I'll probably have a couple more coming up after that. So, and I do have the XT2 that I could shoot with, but for work, but I'll just use the XT3. So we'll go early into next year. Mm-hmm. We'll see how everything shakes out, and we'll see how the Z6 is going, see how readily available it becomes, see what the reviews say, see if it really is really killer, and see what Jared Pullen says. And
that's all I care about.
Just go from there.
You got to wait for the sniff test.
You gotta wait for what is the sniff test?
That's what he does to every camera. He does like before his review, he does like an unboxing and sniff test. So he'll take it out of the box and be like, yeah, nope, this is a good one. I like this. And, as if that's going to help make a decision whether to buy it or not.
He can often be the most annoying guy in the world, but then there's sometimes I agree with him on things, So it's like, I want to like him, but gosh,
everybody's got to be right sometimes. You give someone that knows nothing about photography a camera, out of 1,000 shots, they're going to take a good photo.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
He's a guy I want to love, but it's just so hard.
I'm impartial on a lot of the YouTubers because they make videos I like sometimes that make me crack up laughing, and then sometimes they'll make a video where I'm like, what are they saying?
Yeah.
Right now? Yeah.
Oh, and one thing that influenced my decision for Nikon is I've been following a couple of photographers that I've followed for a little while, and I started supporting their Patreons, which are $5 and $10, so it's pretty cheap. And one of them is Farewell Risti, and the other is Sam Hurd, and they both shoot D850s.
There you go. That's because they're smart, Joseph.
Every single pro that I follow all has full frame.
Yep.
Not that you can't be a pro without full frame at all, because some of the people I follow, like Kevin Mullins, he has amazing photos with his XT2 or X Pro 2 is what he's more a fan of. He also has a GFX, so.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's like you want to see someone that can push APS-C to the ends of the world with amazing talent is Zach Arias. Zach Arias is
Zach Arias.
an amazing photographer. I think he's a Fuji X. He might be a Fuji X ambassador or something now, but he is just so good. And he did this YouTube series where it was when the XT1 came out. He took it to Morocco, I think, or something like that. It was Morocco or Budapest or something like that. And all his photos were insane. Like, it was just amazing. He did the whole thing with just some older lenses at the time. But then I looked him up the other day because I haven't followed him in a while, and now he shoots phase 1 medium format.
Oh, of course.
so it's like, oh well, there you go. And I'm sure he still loves Fuji stuff, but I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
You're obviously you're gonna get what you need for the job, and if he shoots commercial stuff, he has the choice between phase 1 and Fuji. He's gonna go with phase 1, obviously.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, and a lot of it's just me getting in my head.
Yeah.
I'd be perfectly happy with the Fuji.
Yeah, you would be
if I just stuck with it. So, but then my decision now is, okay, I'm going to stick with Fuji for a little while. Mm-hmm. So then what lens do I get next?
That's right. That's the next question.
And so I'm deciding between, I want to save up for a really good one.
Yeah.
And the question is.
So, well, tell everyone what you have right now. What do you have? What
I've
lenses?
got, for work, I have, and I can use the ones that I have for work. I usually don't because they're very specific for what I do at work. I have the kit lens, the 18 to 55, 2.8 to 4, 35 f2, and then I have the 55 to 200, 3.5 to 4.6, I think.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty good zoom. Mm-hmm. And then for mine that I own is a 50 f2.
Okay.
And so now the 50 f2 is good. Mm-hmm. I like it for portraits. Looks good. Gives you some pretty good depth of field, some pretty good bokeh.
Yep.
But now I'm trying to wonder, like, I do want something a little more wide. And so I'm wondering if I could either get the 16 to 55 2.8, which would force me to have to not to worry too much about the bokeh.
Yeah.
You know, which I kind of like I like forced restrictions sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So I like, placing restrictions that force me to do things a lot, and so that would be a nice forced restriction to where if I just had that, I'd have my 16 wide angle, and then I'd have my 55, which would be like almost like an 85, 87 or something, and so it would cover my wide range for a while.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't have to worry about, should I get the 23? Should I get the 35? Should I get the 50?
And I can guarantee it would probably become your most used lens because that's like the 24 to 70 equivalent. And that's, even though I shoot landscape, it's still probably my most used lens because it has my wide end and my semi-telephoto, and I don't have to change lenses.
Exactly. So if we went out to go shoot landscapes, I could shoot it on the 16 end.
That's right.
And get that wide angle there, which would be great. Because I did like the 16 1.4 that I used. And so the only downside is I am going from, an f2 or 1.4 to the rented lens to 2.8.
That's right, which is like an f4.
Yeah, so if it gets any type of low light, which I usually don't shoot in low light, but it's sort of like right when the sun is kind of coming down. Yeah. Sometimes right over the trees, you might need to boost your ISO a little bit. So not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And another thing, no stabilization in almost any Fuji products, like at all.
Yeah. That's
almost none of their lenses have it.
That's
none
one
of their
thing
bodies outside of the XH1.
Yeah, that's one thing that's still controversial with people that did not want to upgrade to the XT3. Everyone that I had talked to had said, well, because they didn't add the in-body image stabilization like they did with the XH1. So it is. I don't know why they chose to do that. It's not the end of the world, like you said, but because there are a lot of Fuji lenses that are not stabilized with the lens. It would have been awesome to have it because then your 16 to 55 2.8 and your 50 and everything, it would be stabilized.
Yep.
So that would be killer.
50 is not stabilized, 35 f2 is not stabilized, 23 f2 is not stabilized, 16 55 is not stabilized.
Right.
Their kit lens is stabilized.
Yeah, and it's really good stabilization.
It's a good kit lens, good stabilization, but you're going from 2.8 to 4, so
that's right.
So I don't know which one to get next. I don't know if I get the zoom or should I save up and get the 56 1.2, but then I'm stuck at that long telephoto end 56 1.2 for a while.
Right.
Yeah,
that's tough because you already have a 50 as well. So it's kind of like you're getting almost the same lens, but just to get the 1.2 aperture.
Yeah, if I would get the 56 1.2, I would sell my 50 f2.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because there'd be no point in having the two.
Right. Yeah, that's tough. I don't know what lens should you get next. I don't know. If anyone's listening on the podcast, email You want him to just go over to the Facebook community and give you some advice?
They can go to the Facebook Burst Mode podcast, I think.
Yeah. And then if you're watching on YouTube, just leave a comment below. You guys let Joseph know what Fuji lens. You shoot mainly family stuff, people, portraits, street photography. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's tough for me to say because
it is tough.
If you shoot families, but you also still kind of want something wider. I mean, the 16-55 probably is the most versatile way to go to get all of that focal length within one lens, even though it's like $1,100 or $1,200. Christmas is coming up, so it's probably going to go down to like $899, $999, like it normally does.
Well, and I got a guy on Craigslist near me that has it for $800.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so he's
had it on there for a long time.
There you go.
Well, he's been pairing it with like that and like a couple of other things. So on Craigslist, it looks like it says that lens plus $2,000, and you're like, who would ever pay that much?
Yeah.
But then you go into the ad, and it's like 5 different things he's trying to sell.
Yeah.
So it probably isn't selling because it looks like he's selling the lens for $2,000. So it's like I emailed him and I'm like, dude, how much for just the lens? He's like, I'd let it go for $800.
Yeah, that's not a bad deal at all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that lens is weather sealed. That lens has the fast autofocus. It's got a really nice, super clicky aperture ring that I always liked. It's got that really well built aperture ring. I don't know. That's tough. I would still. It's tough because you want your full frame bokeh, but at the same time you want like a versatile lens without having to get a bunch of lenses. And I mean, I remember when I owned the 16-55, shooting at the 55N at 2.8 was pretty good. It wasn't amazing bokeh, but it was good. I mean, it was good enough. It was easy good enough to do a portrait session. You could do couples, whatever. And that might solve a lot of your problems to where you don't have to have primes for every single, wide telephoto, middle of the range focal length.
Yeah.
Because you could do the 23, 35, and you have your 50 and the 56. But then when you're on location, do you really want to change lenses, while you're dealing with people? I hated that.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'd be switching lenses all the time. And like this past shoot I did, I had the 16-1.4, 35-2, and 52. And I mainly used the 50 and the 16.
Yeah.
And I took the 35 out, I think maybe one time to get a couple shots of their kids for this one place I was at. So but I hated switching between the two.
Yeah, exactly.
And and the 1.4 was good for the light, but I don't think I ever really used it for the bokeh. I think I mainly used it for the wide shot.
Yeah. The thing that I found, because even though I don't shoot people anymore, when I did do a few portrait sessions when I had Fuji, I noticed that in order to get the bokeh that you want, you had to get kind of uncomfortably close to the subject.
Yes, you get real close.
To get the better bokeh. So you can achieve it, but you have to kind of like, get, hey, do I need a mint, to your subject? Can you smell my breath? Is it okay? You're like right there on top of them taking the picture.
You gotta get real close for that one.
Yeah, so you can achieve it, but it's uncomfortably close. Now, I don't know. I never owned the 50 f2. I had the 56 1.2, but 50 f2, I don't know. I wonder if you played around with it enough, if you could get within like, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 feet and get something, good. But then again, if you're
50 f2 is good.
Okay, yeah. No, but then again, if you're shooting a family, I guess it's harder to get closer.
Yeah, that's the thing that's tricky is that if I'm shooting like this last family had 3 kids, and it was like, I mean, I could use the 50 f2, but I'm getting no context for the shot whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically just them and not much, unless I got really far away, in which case you're kind of losing the majority of that bokeh.
Right.
Because you're getting so far away and they're far away. Yeah. And so it's like, what's the point?
I would probably say the 16-55 then. If that would probably be my advice, to just go with that, even though it's going to be a f4 equivalent. It's still at the long end. It's pretty good. And for the money, if you can get that $800 one on Craigslist, I mean, that'll cover your wide angle and your telephoto and your mid-range in one lens. It's the most versatile, like, workhorse focal range that most people use, that 24 to 70. And that'll probably take care of you. But if you think that, if we stop here and you think that you're really going to end up with a Z6 next year, maybe you just stick with what you have if you can get by with it, and just put all that money towards Nikon glass next year.
Yeah, I almost even thought about just buying the adapter now, the FTZ adapter.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Because it's on sale for $100, so it's like,
that's man. Yeah. I mean, if you know you're going to end up Nikon, come home, Joseph. Come home. Nikon is where you belong.
So I was just looking at all the Nikon lenses, and I'm like, gosh, they're so cheap. Like, I mean, even some of the G lenses are just like so well priced, and then you can get Tamrons and Sigmas, and
the Tamron G2 stuff is really good. The
Tamron G2 stuff is really good.
And they came out with the 15 to 30. They have like a whole they call it like the Holy Trinity, like the wide angle, the mid range, and the telephoto, and they're all really good. Two of them I think are better than the Nikons. The wide angle 15 to 30 is better than the Nikon 14 to 24, and then the 70 to 200 G2 is better than the Nikon 70 to 200.
Wow.
24 to 70 isn't quite as good in my opinion, but I mean, Tamron makes really good stuff. Their G2 stuff's really good.
Well, yeah, for a quarter of the cost.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Oh man.
It's good stuff.
I don't know, man. Why did the Z6 have to come out November 30th? Like,
and then when you get it, right when you finally get it after they've been backordered, it'll be like a Z6 Mark II.
Yeah, I know, seriously.
Or Sony will release their APS-C that has some kind of built-in software for better bokeh.
I know.
It'll be something. Yep.
I was looking even yesterday. I was like, man, well, what's out now? And I was like, well, the A7 III is out, and that's like camera of the year.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's got a lot for the money. It gives you a lot of value.
So when I was even looking at the EOS RX, I was like, just the body is not too expensive. And their glass is really, really good for Canon.
Yeah.
But then you lose 1080, 120, which, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really do video. As much as I want to do video, I don't really do video that much. So I was even looking at that for a little while.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, that's a 30 megapixel.
It's tough. I don't know enough about...
Their adapter's $99.
I don't know enough about the EOS R other than Canon's history of bad dynamic range and just not quite as up to par as Nikon stuff. I don't know. It's not getting great reviews from what I've seen.
Well, I think it's made for purely photography.
Yeah.
Which it shouldn't be. It should be made for photography and video.
Just listen to Peter McKinnon and you'll probably get one.
Yeah, I mean, like, and even a couple people like Matty Hapoy was like, this might be the new choice for vloggers. I'm like, no,
that's going to be the
because that
M50.
and a lens is, more than a GH5.
Yeah,
and I mean, when you go to 4K, you're cropping in like 1.7 or something like that.
It's ridiculous.
So it's like, no, that's not going to be a choice for that. But the pictures is insane, and being able to focus at like -6 EVF or whatever it is, -6 EV. I mean, that thing can focus in like pitch black.
Yeah.
So even that's still not out of the picture completely for me, because that's just their glass is incredible.
Yeah.
What would you do if I got a Canon?
If you got an EOS R?
Yeah.
I would never talk to you again.
Come on.
No, I mean, we talked about this.
24 to 70 f2.
Yeah, no, that's killer. The 24 to 70 f2, man.
I mean, I would never be able to afford that in a million years.
Still, if Nikon had that, I mean, that's a wedding photographer's dream. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's like we said, it's whatever way you go, you're not going to be unhappy. I mean, every camera right now is so good. I still shoot. My second camera is a D7200, which is old now from Nikon, and I still take that as my like going off like with my family on a day trip. Like we've done some apple picking, and like we went up the pumpkin patch the other day up here in North Georgia, and I just took that and my 51.4, and it was great. I mean, and that's an APS-C camera, and it's older. So I mean, whatever you go with, there's just going to be the stupid little technicalities from the brand wars that make people hate the things, but it's not going to be bad either way. Yeah, I don't know, but I just like Nikon because it was my first camera, and I've owned Nikon a lot longer than I owned Canon. I only shot Canon for a little bit when I shot weddings, and I'll say one thing positive about Canon is the way they render skin tones, their color.
Yeah, the color science is good.
Awesome, but their dynamic range sucks. It's horrible. Every time that I tried to dig the shadows or bring a sky back in a portrait shoot when I wasn't using flash, it was just a no-go. It would be terrible. So yeah, I mean, whatever way you go, you're going to be happy with.
What about A7 III? Huh?
I would commend you if you went with the A7 III. I'm not a big Sony fan, but I mean, it's just gotten.
I've shot Sony for years.
Yeah, so that would make more sense for you, but it's converted so many people. Like the really A7 III has had power over people. I don't know what it is.
Now, what about their lenses though? I've not looked at their full frame lenses. Are they good? Do they have a lot?
Yeah, their G Master lenses are actually incredible quality. They're pricey. I mean,
I was gonna say, those are expensive, though.
right, but they're good. Now, when I was reviewing the A7R3, I just shot. I didn't get their G Master lens. I had their 24-70 f4 Zeiss
Yeah.
that was stabilized, and I never had a problem with that. I've heard a lot of people commenting and were like, "Oh, that's the blurriest lens they have in their lineup," and it's like, "Oh, okay, well, I didn't."
Yeah, they wouldn't sell it if it was blurry.
Yeah,
I hate when
exactly.
people do stuff like that.
Oh no,
They're
it's like you just
I
mean
tried
it's
that
not
lens.
quite as sharp as the G Master.
The
It's
lens
not
is crap, unusable.
That's right. They're acting like if I
It's
take a
not
photo, I
unusable.
can't see anything. Yeah. So I mean, I was happy with that, and that one's not very expensive, I don't think. Especially it's like half the price of the 2.8 G Master. But if you do get into the G Master lenses, I'll say that those are incredible quality.
Yeah.
And they're slowly building their full frame lineup of stuff. So they have their 16 to 35, 24 to 70, 70 to 200, which is pretty much, if you got those three, eventually that's all you need forever for people photography. And then their 55 1.8 Zeiss, which is not very expensive, is really good. So if you got the A7 III, I wouldn't be mad because that's just for the value.
camera.
Yeah, dare I say, might be better than the Z6. I don't know because we haven't seen the reviews, but for the same price, before you buy the Z6, you might want to do some renting or some research about that because I've heard nothing but good stuff about the A7 III.
Yeah, I'm sure the A7 III will probably be better than the Z6 as far as
I'm
more
sure.
focus points, better eye tracking.
Oh yeah.
Things like that. But for the Z6, I think first go, it's going to be a pretty awesome shot. And just, oh man, all those lenses.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you're definitely
many
going to,
lenses.
you're going to have access to a lot more lenses for sure. So yeah, it's just going to, it's going to be whatever you think. As far as the eye tracking though, like you said, I don't think the Nikon has any eye tracking. It has some face tracking, but the Sony has killer eye autofocus. I used that on the A7R III, which I don't even think is good as the A7 III for that, and the eye tracking like blew me away. I was so impressed. So yeah, it could track a 2-year-old little girl running around Disney World. Now that's saying something. Even when she was like looking like off right or off left to the camera, it was like right there on the side of her face. It's nuts.
And that's one thing that Fuji does really well now.
Oh, that's right.
So
I got to play with that as well. Yeah.
Because when I did the family this weekend, I was like, it was just nailing every shot. I mean, it was just so good.
Yeah.
And so I do like that, but
yeah, that's awesome.
My soul just longs for full frame.
Full frame. That's understandable.
I mean, it's just like all the big people I follow that are like really successful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they all have full frame.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yep.
So it's like, oh man, not that makes you a better
right, and then that's not what makes them successful. Obviously, there's
not at all.
Yeah, I mean that's when you run a photography business, you shoot like 20% of the time, and 80% of it is marketing and running the business and chatting with clients. But yeah, I mean all that stuff can definitely get to your head. I know because when I started doing that stuff, I was always like, okay, everyone that I love. And I love their photos. What do they shoot with? What are their opinions on this camera? I mean, you're going to do it. I know we'll say a million times it's not about the gear, but to a point, it has to be about the gear to at least cater to what you need it for. Like it's, right, photography is not just a camera. Like it's all about your creative vision, and it's all pretty much in your head, like what you decide to do with the camera. But it's still a tool, and you have to have the right tool for the job.
Yeah, and it's funny because everyone who says the camera doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Those people usually have like $15,000 cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, guys, the camera does not matter. What are you shooting with? Medium format. Oh, okay.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Living a luxurious lifestyle doesn't matter.
How about we switch cameras?
Yeah.
And you go do the stuff you normally do.
Yep.
And I do the stuff I normally do. And no, a camera can't make you can't, edit your way out of a bad photo.
Yeah, you hand a GFX to a sucky photographer, it's still going to be sucky photos. Yeah,
it's like when people win the lottery and they end up going broke. Like so many people that win the lottery end up going broke because they don't know how to handle money.
That's right.
So if you give them a lot of money, it doesn't matter if you give them a lot or a little, they're not going to be able to handle it and they're not going to be able to be successful. So it's like if somebody doesn't know photography well, even if you give them a medium format or a D850 or something like that, then it doesn't really matter because they're not going to know what to do with it. So
that's right. Yeah,
like last night after we were talking, I was like, man, I need to get back to sort of like the root of what photography is. And I have a photography book of Richard Avedon, who's this incredible photographer. And he had done he'd taken pictures of like world leaders, celebrities, and things like that in like the, what was it, like 60s, 70s, 80s. And he did some work that was commissioned by a museum to go into like the West and Midwest and just take pictures of people out there. It's the only thing he ever got commissioned really to do.
Yeah.
And it ended up being like his most popular work. He'd shot the most famous people in the world. And what was most popular was he would go out into the West and he would find these people and would take pictures of them. And so they'd be out in the middle of like Arizona, in the middle of nowhere with like drifters.
Yeah.
And he had this white sheet that he'd put behind them. Mm-hmm. And then he would take their picture using this large format camera.
Oh, wow.
Called a Deerdorf. They don't even make them anymore.
That's cool.
And so, I mean, it's the kind where like you get underneath the black thing, and stuff like that. And the pictures were just, and it's like, it's almost black and white, but it's almost like it's just a hint of sepia, kind of.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so detailed, but it's the coolest pictures you'll see in the world. And you're like, man, all that really matters is this guy found some really good people and took some really awesome photos.
That's right.
And you're like, it kind of inspires you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this is really cool. He has some of the coolest pictures.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. That would be a dream job, to get commissioned to go out to the West and just photograph just people that are living out there in their own little culture. Like I'm right now, I'm trying to, I've told you about this. It's been like a long time coming, trying to do like a Cowboys and Indians book. I don't do a lot of portraits, but I'm trying to do that still. And there's an Indian tribe, a Cherokee Indian tribe that lives up in northern Georgia. I think it's in Dahlonega. And I have reached out. They have like a Facebook foundation page or whatever where you can donate or whatever. And I asked them like, hey, I'm wanting to do like a book, wanted to tell your story. Like, can I come out there, take some photos? And they're like, well, you have to get permission from the chief, and you have to like be willing to possibly join the tribe. And I'm like, what? Like all this is really cool. But that's the kind of stuff that like when you get into that stuff and you get sucked into like a job like that, Lightroom versus Capture One, camera versus, it doesn't matter. Like you're just going out there and you're going to do whatever it takes to get a freaking awesome photo shoot. And that's what a lot of people need to get back to. Like every time I look at my portfolio, there'll be times where I'm a moron and I'm like, well, I just need to maybe just reprocess the photo and give it a little less color, a little more color. But no, what I need to do is get my butt outside and go take some more photos.
Yes, exactly. Like I want to go to all those little North Georgia towns that we go to and find people just doing, like, I've always wanted to do a project on people with beards.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Like that would just be so cool.
I mean, why not?
But man, you need to see. There's a movie with Jeremy Renner that deals a lot with Native American tribes.
Ooh, cool.
And it's like this one girl goes missing, and it deals a lot with the sort of internal politics that they have in tribes. It's a really good movie. It's really, really good. Elizabeth Olsen, Jeremy Renner. Oh man, I need to remember what
man. Yeah, text me that later. I gotta see that.
That's good. Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, it's been like a year trying to get, because they'll allow certain people to come in for certain things, but then there's ceremonies where it's like, sacred or whatever, and like I completely respect that. They don't want other people in there, but apparently they will let people come in and observe them. And they kept trying to be like, well, we can tell them that it's like a media thing. I was like, but I'm not, I don't want you to pitch it as that. I'm not media. I don't want to do like a news story. I really want to do like an art book, really on certain people. And even if I was thinking, even like after I take their portrait, I'd love, just so that way I'm not just like in and out, like, hey, you look cool, click, bye. Like I'd love to do like set up a camera and do like a quick 15-minute interview, so I get some video about their story just for me, so that I can kind of tell their story in the book with the portrait.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Because I still find it fascinating that I'm here living in 2018 with an iPhone and computers, and there's people just a couple hours up north living in a tribe. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Wind River
is the name of the movie. Okay.
Wind River. Okay. Very, very, very good movie.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Very good.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so Z6 is probably where you're going to end up. Maybe Sony A7 III. Yeah. God forbid, not the Canon EOS R.
I don't know, man. I look at that Canon and I'm like, gosh, their lenses are awesome. Their adapter's only $99. That's nothing.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I mean, it's up to you. At that point, why not just go with the T3i?
I can't handle that kind of camera. That's too much camera for me to handle.
Too much power in your hands.
No, man. No one person should have that much power.
I agree. That is quite the burden.
Only Thanos.
Only Thanos. Yeah, he would just raise up his fist. T3i, T4i, T5i.
Yep. editing with Luminar.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of the Skyloom, I've been getting emails. I don't know. They're about to come out with like, it seems like 4 new softwares, and one of them is like a complete like AI. You just like put your photo in, and it just edits it for you, and you export it.
Photolemur. They bought Photolemur, and that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, it just seems like it just takes all of the fun out of it. You just drop it in, you spit it out, and there's your photo.
There is a use case for that, where I was thinking, because I have a lot of people send me photos for social media at our church, and I have to edit all those photos. It would really be kind of cool if I was like, before you send me a photo, put it in Photolemur, and then process that, and then send it to me. Because then I know it'll at least be relatively good, because it just does sort of basic things. Tries to save the highlights, tries to create a little contrast and stuff. So it's not too bad.
That's true. Yeah, for like mass social media stuff.
But if they're trying to market that to like photographers, then they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think they are. They need to market it to like teenage girls with Instagrams. That's what they need to go.
There you go.
They'll sell a lot of that. All right, cool. Well, anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up? I think we're good. We're 8 o'clock right on the dot here.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for watching and listening as always, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode. Take care.